is the baby Wampus Cat, and I'm introducing the scary of scaries, the awesome trickster in your nightmares, Cryptidmaster!
Thank you, Peaches. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm your host, Cryptidmasterkd, and the terrifying creature watching you sleep from your attic. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about a very special legend that's one of my favorites. The legendary creature known as the Dogman. I have covered this creature in the past, but I'd like to bring to you today a couple good stories. This way we can have a lot, and I know we're going to have a lot of fun. And also my own personal theory of where the Dogman came from. But that's for later, after I tell these fantastic stories that I am going to share with you. But first, what is a Dogman, you may ask? The Dogman is a cryptid, a werewolf-like cryptid, from Michigan to Wisconsin, almost all over the United States and Canada, and Alaska, where it's known as the Amarok. And it's a creature that stands 7 to 8 feet tall, a long muzzle, perky ears, a head like a dog or a wolf, canine-like, a huge muscular chest, large arms, and human-like hands with huge claws, capable of bringing down prey over 100 pounds. The creature is said to kill using deadly sharp fangs, mostly like mine, and those terrifying claws. It's said to subdue prey over 100 times its own weight, mainly cows and livestock. Now, all that aside, also its knees are bent backwards like a dog or a kangaroo, and weird human-like feet. But with that out of the way, let's get on with some delightful scary stories! Yay! Also, it's the 31st Cryptidmaster story channel. I'm a big boy YouTuber now. Anyway, all that aside, guys, let's hop into those stories. Our first story of the night happened a couple years ago. It's one of my favorite stories from John in Siren, Wisconsin. John and his dad, you see, hunt every summer on a large piece of property with a super thick forest and in the middle of nowhere. He says that there was one particular area that he felt paranoidally spooky, like something was always watching him from the woods, especially from the tree line on the edge of the property. One summer, he and his his cousin, were playing against each other in a plastic BB gun fight, which don't do unless you're wearing protection. Don't. While chasing each other deep into the woods, they found themselves deep into the forest by the hill. An eerie quiet in the stopped them in their tracks. Now, this is a fun fact you need to know. When this is most common for Dogman sightings, is to all of a sudden the whole woods go quiet. It's so scary you can hear a pin drop. Anyway, he and his cousin, everything went quiet. Moving, something was moving. Hang on. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this huge creature appeared, standing at less than 7 feet tall on its hind legs. They were frozen in their tracks, looking at the looming white-toothed canine creature with massive jaws, eyes plucking between them, like looking at both of them at once. And teeth like daggers were shining in the summer sun. Thank you, Cryptid Mom. This had to be the Dogman, right? I mean, from what they report, it wasn't a bear, it wasn't a mountain lion, it wasn't a wolf, it wasn't a coyote. This was something else. And anyway, it started to chase them down the hill. The cousins sped off into the forest, and the creature chased them, and the whole thing that's going through their minds is, don't freeze. Don't freeze. You freeze, you die. The creature, though, stopped chasing right when they got out at the edge of the tree line. And they told their grandparents, because they were at their grandparents' cabin, that it was a bear, that they were chased by a bear. But later on, John and his mother and his cousin were sitting by a campfire, and he relayed the story of his encounter. And he told her, it wasn't a bear, it was something else. And when he told his mom this, she said it brought up a lot of bad memories for her. Prior to her own encounter, she was in a vehicle in the same area of Wisconsin when what appeared to be an oversized wolf crossed the road in front of her. She says that when it moved weird. Like it wasn't comfortable. It was on all fours, but according to her, it looked like it was uncomfortable on all fours. So, this creature looked at her, got up on hind legs, and charged the car. She sped off and hoped never to see it again. It ran off into the woods. And that's the end of that story. Now, this story, goes back a couple years ago. Christian and his buddy were both high school teachers and scientists. In Pennsylvania. And anyway, they had gotten from a couple eyewitnesses stories of this particular area in the woods that had a lot of cryptid activity, a lot of paranormal activity, and they decided it was worth a look. So they went down these batch. When they got there, they had everything they needed, supplies, a working camera, and a gun, just in case. Because when you're dealing with cryptids, you see, you always have to have a gun or something to defend yourself should things get messy. I should know. I never been out there. But anyway, he and his friend went into the woods down this tunnel, and they stopped at a clearing. And Christian sat down and they saw all these. Here's the thing, they saw these tree structures, like there were X-shaped trees and just trees all over the trail, like something was trying to block them in. And they found footprints and took photographs of these footprints, which appeared almost dog and human like. And anyway, they stopped at this one clearing. Christian sat down, and all of a sudden, his friend here gets a very, very, who we'll call Josh, got this very concerned look of terror in his face. And he pulled out his gun and said, "Behind you." And he aimed his gun, and Christian turned around, and he saw a hand going over the side of the tree. Hand, claws, these perky ears, and this canine-like face. And his friend had a gun, the gun aimed at the creature, and they said, "We have to get out of here," back towards the tunnel. And so they started going through the tunnel, and the creature darted behind the tree, and, well, it just wasn't there anymore. They were going through these batch of trees that were shaped in a tunnel formation, and they hear these, like huffing, like something following them. They were able to get through, and they came to this one clearing where there was a deer carcass on the ground. And they knew this had to be the Dogman. This had to be the man dog. I mean, it wasn't anything else. But anyway, they found, like, what they described as blinds, hunting blinds, that were made from woven trees. And there wasn't just one, there was a couple of them. So this is where they knew that this is where these creatures made these blinds to hunt. So not only are these creatures intelligent, but they can make blinds. hunting blinds. We're talking of something very intelligent. And they were like, we had to get out of there. We have to get out of here. And all of a sudden, from behind this one big tree, there it was. There was the Dogman, looking right at them. And they knew they had to get out of there. So they ran through the trees towards the car. And they hear this thing, like this, what they described as a bark, a grunt, and a howl all at once. They were very scared of this. They ran as fast as they could, and they got back to the car, and that's when it stopped following them. And they drove off. They got away, but the memory still haunts them. And anyway, that's the end of that story. Now, let's ask a couple questions here. These dog men are able to build blinds. They're able to create tree structures like Bigfoot. These things have to have almost human intelligence. But not only that, in this third story, somewhere in Wisconsin, all these things going in your head. Anyway, this one man, Larry, and his brother Buster, both of them, they love the wilderness. They love to fish, they love to hunt, their families love hunting and fishing. You know, they love having a good old time. And this particular encounter happened on the 4th of July, and they were going to have a fish fry. So them and some buddies, they went out on a boat, you know. Now, what you have to understand about this guy, he used to love, before his encounter, to go out in the woods and walk at night, you know, when everything was quiet and you could hear the coyotes howling. You know, he was that kind of man to be out at nature at night. He doesn't do that anymore, he says. He doesn't know if he'll ever do that again. And anyway, he and his brother, Buster, go out with some friends out to this one location where there was good fishing, on an island where there was good fishing. And around 9 o'clock, they start fishing. And they do what's called jugging, where they tie fishing lines to a water jug and put bait and a hook down and throw it out in the water, and you can catch more fish that way. And as a fisherman myself, that's pretty clever. I'm impressed. They didn't say what kind of fish they were going after. But anyway, around 9 o'clock, they started fishing. Larry caught a fish. They got that shit in the cooler. They were getting in the groove. And all of a sudden, they hear this, like a growl. They hear rustling. And Larry says, we got some company. And anyway, and he says to his friend, get that light on. He's trying to get the light on. And anyway, And just out of nowhere, this huge rock comes plopping in the water like something had thrown it. And anyway, they try and get the light on to see what because they hear all these growling and grunting noises. And anyway, they go out, they put the light on, start scanning the forest. The light isn't working for some reason. And anyway, they finally got the light working, and they shined it on the area where the noise was coming from. And he says when it hit the creature, you don't forget. And the creature, he says, was just growling and grunting at them, and as they got the light on it, that's when it started standing up. That's when it got up on its hind legs. Now, what he described, when it got up on its hind legs, he heard this, like, knuckle cracking noise, like when you're cracking your knuckles, but if you just had these huge knuckles and you're just cracking them, you just hear these bone popping noises. And when it got finally up on its full hind legs, it was about 10 feet tall. 9 feet tall. And they were scared. When they were able to get the light, the creature darted to the left. And as they were trying to get the light to work, because it kept going off and it was really scary, the light started going off, and all of a sudden, as they're trying to get the light to go on, they hear this huge hissing noise, like air being let out of a tire. Now, as a hunter, he says that when deer want to alert other animals to danger, they let out what's called a wheeze. And it's this loud hissing noise. And it was like that, only 10 times forceful, purposeful, like full out there. And he's like, he's thinking to himself during this whole encounter, is it trying to scare us away? Or was it alerting something else? Was it calling something else? And they were able to get the light on in time, and they shined to the left towards another tree. And there he was, peeking from behind the tree. But also they heard a creature to the left, to the right. So there was two of them. And they knew that they had to get out of there. And he says in his own words, when you hear that, you know you're dead. You're not getting out of this. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this creature's trees are being pulled aside. He says it was like a bulldozer going through the woods. This creature was charging straight at them on all two legs. And he's like, this is how I'm gonna die. It's like it wanted your soul. Anyway, they finally got all over to the boat, and they were getting that boat going as the creature was like a few feet away from them. They finally got in the boat and they were able to get away. But just on their way home, they were like, everybody was shook up. It was like very seriously shook up. Buster says that he was holding back tears, like he really wanted to cry. When they got back to the families, the wife says she was worried, and anyway, he just holds his wife close, and Larry's just breaking down crying. He's like, he tells her everything, and she kind of laughs for a minute, and then she's like, you have to believe me. You just have to believe me. And he was just breaking down. Anyway, a couple months later, Buster did some research and about his experience and others who had this experience. They think this creature's been around for a long time, and that they call it the Dogman. He even got a song named after him. Anyway, that's the end of that story. And anyway, Larry's still trying to get pictures and stuff of the creature. He puts up trail cams everywhere, trying to get some validation, some closure into his experience. And but that's the end of that story. I hope you guys really enjoyed those stories. But now, thanks for spending time with me. But before I go, I want to explain my own theory. The theory that I have of where these creatures come from. And this theory may have some validation because these things have been seen all throughout human history. Like way back. Even the Egyptians, Anubis. So they've seen something. My theory is, if any of you in the comments have heard of the dire wolf, which is an extinct species of giant wolf that lived during the Pleistocene area over 100,000 years ago. And some paleontologists believe that the dire wolf died out because it was outcompeted by wolves. Normal wolves. The gray wolf. They couldn't hunt for the same food. They were outcompeted. My theory is, we know that Mother Nature has a weird way of adapting species. Us, for example, we evolved from hairy apes in Africa to the very beings we are today because of our ever-changing environment. Anyway, my theory is, if you think about it, the dire wolf was being outcompeted by normal gray wolves. So in order not to go extinct, because that's nature's law, if you don't adapt, if you don't evolve, you die. Anyway, my theory is that if these species of dire wolf lived on, maybe after seeing with humans for a few thousand years, that they would adapt to be able to compete with their predecessors, evolved intelligence, evolved human-like hands, Because you always seen on dogs, they always have that fifth claw that they don't use. What if that claw was able to evolve into a hand? And these creatures could have gained this enormous size, developed intelligence, and we get what we now know as the Dogman. Leave it in the comments if you think you somewhat agree with that theory, or what theories you might have. Now, a lot of cryptozoologists think that say that wolves in Wisconsin and Michigan were officially eradicated. And ever since then, more Dogman sightings have been coming around. And because of that, it's like King Kong and the Skull Crawlers. Because we took out their natural competition, now they're growing in numbers and proliferating, and they're clearly not scared of humans. In fact, they might consider us a threat or a food source, but that is my theory. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And I have a challenge for you YouTube poop makers. I'm talking to you, Busnut33. Why don't you make a YTP of me? I will be greatly honored. Anyway, I'd like you all, I love you all. Like, favorite, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. I love you all. And peace out.